Xin chào quý vị và các bạn. Tôi tên là Pam. Tôi là tham tán văn hóa thông tin ở Đại sứ quán Mỹ. Tôi rất vui khi có cơ hội hôm nay để nói chuyện về tiểu bang Washington. Theo ý kiến của tôi, Washington là một trong những địa điểm đẹp nhất tại Mỹ. Washington State is named for President George Washington, the first president of the United States. A lot of people confuse Washington State and Washington, D.C., the capital, but they're completely different places in different parts of the U.S. Washington State is a very mountainous place. In Washington, you can find beautiful mountains, some of the highest mountains in the United States. Mount Rainier, in fact, is over 14,000 feet. It's one of the most famous sites in Washington State. Washington also has a very beautiful long coastline, and the coast runs all up and down the Pacific Ocean, and on the north, it's bordered by Canada. Washington State is a place with a lot of agriculture. In fact, right here in Vietnam, we can find many products that come from Washington State. Some of the most popular ones are apples. Washington is the biggest producer of apples anywhere in the US. They also grow some wonderful cherries that are called Bing cherries, and others that are very, very famous, special to Washington State, called Rainier cherries. Washington State is also one of the biggest wine producers in the US, second only to California. And they produce a lot of lumber and paper. So the capital of Washington is Olympia, but it's not the most famous city in Washington State. Probably the most famous is Seattle. So one of the most famous things in Seattle is coffee. We have a lot of coffee right here in Hanoi. Well, people in Seattle and other parts of Washington State also love to drink coffee. In fact, it's one of my favorite things. So you may have heard of a company called Starbucks. Starbucks got its start in Seattle, and now it's world famous. I've had a chance to visit the very first cafe that they ever opened in Seattle. It's quite famous, and it's right across the street from the Pike Place Market. There are fishmongers. They sell fish, and they like to throw the salmon, and they throw them all the way across the shop to each other. Really big fish that are like a meter long, and they throw them back and forth, and people love to line up and watch them throw these fish. Another one of my favorite things in Seattle is called the Space Needle. It's this huge tower. You can see it in the skyline almost anywhere you are in Seattle. And it was built for the 1962 World's Fair. Up at the very top of the Space Needle, there's a restaurant that is shaped like a flying saucer. And it goes around in a circle. About once an hour is a restaurant there. You could actually go and have a meal and revolve around and see all the beautiful views of Seattle. I'm going to mention one other place, a site that I think is very special for Seattle that I really like. It is a very unique sculpture, and it is found under a bridge. It is called the Fremont Troll. It's kind of scary, but it's also really cool. So if you go to Seattle, I highly recommend that you go to those places because they're really interesting and I think they're quite unique. I want to mention one more thing that I think is really important about Seattle, and that is it's a really popular university town. One of the most famous universities is called the University of Washington. It's a beautiful campus, and it welcomes many international students every year. In fact, many students who come right here from Vietnam attend the University of Washington. I really hope that you will have a chance to visit Washington State, to visit Seattle, maybe go to school there. And if you are interested in learning more about Washington State and about Seattle, please contact us at the embassy. We would love to talk with you. We have educational advisors who can talk to you about opportunities to study not only in Seattle, but other places in the US. Thanks very much.